Hey, the next time you have a meeting, it will be 2021.
Oh, there you go. That's wonderful. It's good to know.
All right, I have 6:30, Mary Beth.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. And as a preliminary matter, this is Mary Beth Lynch. I'm the chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Please permit me to confirm that all members and staff are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Paul George.
Here.
Lisa Cosette.
Here.
Patrick Fullen.
Here.
And Matt Armenti.
Here.
And good evening, Matt. Matt is standing in for Peter Mulcahy, who was not able to join us tonight. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bernard Cahill.
Here.
Rowan McAllister.
Here.
And Kristen Rapolo.
Here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good evening. And this is the open meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals is convened by telephone conference and video conference via Google Hangout. You may join by telephone by calling 1-513-839-2989 and enter the following PIN, 874-351-950#. Meeting ground rules, please. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda, and before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, Mary Beth Lynch, will introduce each board member or staff member who has a lead role for the particular item or a guest speaker associated with the item on the agenda. After they conduct their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members first and then to staff members, inviting each by name to provide any comment or questions. I will then call upon the members to offer a motion and then for a second. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute and unmute your phone by pressing *6 or mute your computer when you are not speaking.
Mary Beth.
Yes.
I just think you were reading off the wrong number for the call-in.
Oh, Kristen, could you help me with that?
Sure. So the correct number is 1-508-779-6069 with a PIN number of 360-190-986.
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Somebody's listening. That's wonderful. All right, let's start. In addition to keeping your microphones muted, when I'm calling you, I would remind the public to please keep any questions or comments brief and to the point, and any questions should be made through the chair. First agenda item, we're looking for a $476 for the Worcester Telegram and Gazette for legal notices dated November 30th, 2020. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the bill as read.
Motion to approve.
May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Lisa?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. Moving on to our first public hearing, 6:30 p.m. This is for a special permit, 13 Sherwood Avenue in the resident B2 district. Section 4B to add dormers on an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The public hearing for 13 Sherwood is a new public hearing. Could the applicant please introduce themselves and explain their application to the board and to the public? Do we have someone here for 13 Sherwood?
Oh, hello?
Hello,
Can you hear
John?
me?
Yes, we can. Can you please give us your name?
Glenn Davidson.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi. I'm the owner of 13 Sherwood Ave. And I'm trying to get a building permit for two shed dormers off the back side of the roof on a non-conforming house, which is the setback is like 5 feet short, and the side setback due to a variance is a garage is there. So the dormers don't do anything to the existing footprint of the property. They're within the existing footprint. I'm new at this, so I have no idea what I'm supposed to say.
No,
But-
you're doing exactly the right thing. We do have a lot of corresponding information in our packets.
Right.
I might ask Rowan if she would like to add anything.
Sure, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I can share this plot plan. Just like Mr. Davidson said, 2 shed dormers are proposed on the north side of the house. It's pre-existing non-conforming due to the side yard, as he mentioned, and the front yard setback, as well as the lot area. Although the proposed setbacks won't change with the proposed dormers. So that's about it.
Great. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to go through the board and ask if anyone has questions. I'd like to start with Lisa Cossette.
I have no questions. It's pretty clear that this is non-conforming and the change will not make it more non-conforming, so I have no issues.
Thank you. Paul George, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Patrick Fullen, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Matt Armenti, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. And I have no questions. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close?
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to the deliberation. Do I have a motion to approve a special permit to construct 2 dormers on an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling at 13 Sherwood Ave?
So moved?
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, Lisa Cossette,
Aye.
Patrick Fullen,
Aye.
Matt Armenti,
Aye.
Paul George.
Aye.
Wonderful, so moved. Thank you very much. Second hearing, this is to hear the appeal of 205 Oak Street, resident B1 district, special permit to section 4B to construct 2 dormers on an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The public hearing for 205 Oak Street is a new public hearing. Could the applicant please introduce themselves and explain their application to the board and to the public?
Yep. Hi, my name's Keith Baldinger. I'm the owner of 205 Oak Street. The house sits on a corner lot. We'd like to add 2 shed dormers to the west side on the Latura Street side. The house sits 18 feet off of that property line and 13 feet off the front property line. There'll be no additional footprint or no additional square footage in the home. The second floor it's a story and a half. Second floor is sloped ceilings. We're just looking for more space in the rooms.
Thank you, Mr. Baldinger. Can I ask Ms. McAllister, do you have anything additional to add?
Nope, not at this time. Thank you.
Great. I'll now ask one at a time if the board has any questions or comments for the applicant. I'd like to start with Lisa, please.
I just have one comment. Normally we require a surveyed plot plan, but I believe this request is asking for a waiver. Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay. So again, it's an existing non-conforming and the changes are not going to be more non-conforming, so I have no issue.
Thank you. Mr. George?
I was just wondering if you had any plans to show what the dormers were going to look like?
I did submit a plan, a hand-drawn plan. I don't know if Rowan, if you have that.
Yeah. Are you
Paul,
able
any
to see it?
questions?
I'm all set, thank you.
You are welcome. Patrick Fullen, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Matt Armenti?
None at this time.
Thank you very much. I am fine with this. I'm going to now ask if the board, I'm sorry, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Madam Chair, I have a point of order question.
Yes.
Before we close the hearing, do we see if any abutters have any comment?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Yes.
Sure.
Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter in attendance? Okay. Thank you, Lisa, for that reminder.
Sure.
Going to give
So-
it 2 seconds.
Okay.
All right. Sounds like everybody is comfortable. So let's, can I get a motion, please?
Motion to close?
Can I get a second?
Second,
Okay, great. Do I have a motion to approve a special permit to construct 2 dormers on an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling at 205 Oak Street?
So moved.
Is there a second?
second,
All in favor? Lisa?
Aye.
Matthew?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Paul?
aye.
And Mary Beth Lynch, aye. So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And I just got my agenda right out of order. So here we go. Okay, third hearing, 6:30 is to hear the appeal of 25 Kingston Street in the resident B2 district. This is a variance to section 7, table 2 for frontage to construct a single-family dwelling. The public hearing for 25 Kingston Street is a new public hearing. Could the applicant please introduce themselves and explain the application to the board?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of, oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and members of the board, respectfully, my name is Richard Ricker, and I'm an attorney with law offices at 11 Maple Avenue. And I'm representing Mr. Vilponi, who is the applicant. This is a lot that originally was deeded in 1940 from the town of Shrewsbury to individuals back in the 40s, it was a part of a plan called the Bungalow Hill Plan. The lot itself is in a fairly wooded area. If you've gone down Kingston Street, you can certainly attest to the fact that it is probably not the most improved street in town. It is kind of rough. In fact, I had to put 4-wheel drive on in order to get out of there today. But the street next to it that is the Paper Street, Tyndale Street, it intersects with Kingston Street. And if we were able to use the radius for the Kingston Street turn onto Tyndale, we would have sufficient frontage. It would give us an extra 15 feet of frontage there. As you can see that turn right there. But you see, Tyndale Street is a paper street and really doesn't even exist other than on paper. So Kingston Street really goes straight up to Worthington. Basically, the applicant went forward based on initial conversations with the building department, went forward and obtained health department septic approval. He went forward and with the Conservation Commission filing, and the Conservation Commission had its hearings and issued an order of conditions. And this was during the time when the health department and the building department were in the same part of the building. And so I don't know how they missed it, but when it came time to get the actual building permit, now that the septic system's in and conservation is through and everything is in place according to conservation, the building department determined that because there is a wetland at that corner of Tyndale Street, that it causes a topographical problem and it impacts the frontage. So the frontage is really there, except that you cannot improve the road as our town likes people to do in order to get the building permits. There is adequate access, and I would point out that there is case law that supports us, the Corcoran versus the Planning Board of Sudbury case, which is 406 Mass 248. And I did review that with Mr. Cahill early on. Basically, that is the problem, is that little corner, and our inability, in accordance with the building department, to use that 15 feet of radius as our frontage. I would suggest to you respectfully, this is clearly a topographical hardship. The lot is otherwise exceeds all the requirements. It is larger than the required lot size. It, like I say, it exceeds all the other requirements. In addition to the topographical hardship, you also have a financial hardship where this Gilbert Volponi went forward and put in a septic system, went forward with engineering. In fact, Thompson Liston Associates did the engineering for this, and they frankly are surprised that because, as you can see from their plan, well, I had another plan that was filed with this as well, a more detailed plan showing the topography. And that plan notes that there is sufficient frontage. So even the engineers thought that there was no problem here. So I would suggest to you that there has been quite a bit of money expended here to get to this point. So there is, in addition to the topographical hardship being the wetlands issue, there is a financial hardship. So in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 40A, I would suggest to you respectfully that we meet the hardship requirement. This is clearly incidental to this lot. This is a fairly good wooded area. The property is surrounded by town of Shrewsbury land. It was, in fact, as I say, originally deeded from the town of Shrewsbury. So this is incidental to just this lot. I would suggest that there's no derogation from the bylaw, because we're talking about the use of this lot for single-family use, which is in keeping with the residential zone that it's in. And I would suggest respectfully there would be no nuisance value to this. There's no nuisance whatsoever in light of the fact that, again, this is a single-family home. And it's an appropriate use. It's actually a very nice area. But for this 15-foot issue of wetlands around a radius, we wouldn't be before you. So with that, if you have any questions, I think Mr. Vilponi's on the line somewhere, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you. Ms. McAllister or Mr. Cahill, do you have anything to add to this?
I don't believe I have anything to add.
I do not have anything to add either. I think the hardship is apparent in the wetlands and the inability to improve the additional 10 feet that they need.
Thank you. Let me go through and ask if anyone on the board has any questions or comments for the applicant. I'd like to start with Lisa, please.
So I just had a question, Ms. McAllister, if you could show that picture again, the plot plan. So it was an excellent explanation of the hardship. I just had a question. With the paper road in place, how will access be provided to the property? I'm assuming from Kingston directly.
Yes,
Okay.
there is actually a driveway already driven in there. And
So I was trying to see that on GIS, but that was from 2019, I guess. So
yeah, Ms. McAllister, I thought I gave you another plan that shows.
the red lines,
Yeah,
the
the
red
red-
lined plot
yeah.
plan.
Right, right.
Okay, yeah. So let's look at that just for a moment, and we have to
that's it.
just rotate it to be the same as what you had before. Okay,
So that shows you the outlines of the build area. including
thank you.
drive-
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I had as a question.
Mr. George, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. What is the amount of frontage they have there right now? Minus the radius. Is that 40 feet?
40 feet, 0.1, yeah.
Okay, and when you go to include the radius, that gives you would that give you the 50 feet?
55.
55.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Fullen, any questions?
No questions.
And Paul, that's using only half of the radius, okay? Sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
Thank
Mr.
you. And Mr. Armenti, any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have none at this time as well. Given this is a public hearing, is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter? I'm going to give it a couple seconds. If somebody would like to be included in this conversation, you need to let us know, please. This is why we're all looking forward to in-person meetings again, so we know who's here, smiling and looking to be involved. Okay. Going once, going twice. If there's no one that wishes to be heard on this, like to close. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Can I ask one more question, please, Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering how this was caught before they got permits to do the septic.
It wasn't. It wasn't caught, and it went through the Board of Health and went through Conservation without noticing this problem.
So, I mean, how did they catch it after?
Ms. Sheehan caught it on the, I guess, in the process of the building permit.
I think I wasn't, excuse me, when it first went through, I actually wasn't working on permits at the time. I may not even have been in Shrewsbury. But when it came up for a building permit about 2 months ago, Patty and I caught it. I can't remember if it was me or her, but one of us saw it and brought it to the attention. But knowing the existence of wetlands there, again, I think that's a kind of cut and dry hardship. That's kind of what the board, we typically look for. So, yeah,
Brian?
but we did catch it. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, Paul, I don't know what happened ahead of time, like the years prior.
So
But we
it
did
was-
catch it this time.
So I guess it's Bernie and Patty caught it.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Motion to close?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, Lisa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
Aye.
Mr. Armenti?
Aye.
Mr. Fullen?
Aye.
Mary Beth Lynch, so moved. Can I get a motion to approve the variance from the frontage requirement of Section 7, Table 2 of the zoning bylaw for 25 Kingston Street?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Lisa?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Matthew?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Mary Beth, aye. So moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Next hearing, this is to hear the appeal of 378 Main Street, Residence A. Selco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless. This is looking for a variance of Section 6, Table 1 to construct a wireless telecommunication tower. The public hearing for 378 Main Street is a new public hearing. Could the applicant please introduce themselves and explain their application to the board and the public?
Yes, good evening, board members. My name is Chris Swiniarski. I'm an attorney for Verizon Wireless. As you mentioned, Ms. Lynch, we're seeking a variance to construct a 120-foot monopole tower at 378 Main Street, which is part of the campus of St. John's. The reason for this is pretty simple, as you can probably guess. We are trying to improve service in that area, but not only in that area. The objective of this site is also to improve service really in a much larger area than just the location of the site. And I think a lot of that is evident in the plots that we included as tab 6. And I'll get into that in a little more detail as needed, but I'll run through the variance criteria quickly so that we can put ourselves in the position we want to be. Give me 1 second to just switch my notes here. With soil shape or topography of the site. This particular area of Shrewsbury is something of a valley, and it's pretty densely populated when you include I-290. And because of that, in our business, topography means everything. I mean, we cannot transmit a signal through mountains, through land, even through dense tree cover. So really, that location being in that valley is what helps us to provide coverage within this pretty large valley. Going on top of the ridges that surround the valley makes it a little bit too far to reach, and also picks up really too many users, and you start having a bandwidth issue. And that's one of the things that we're trying to solve with this site. That sort of plays into the second criteria, where literal enforcement creates a hardship. In essence, if literal enforcement of the bylaw is imposed such that we could never put a facility in the Residence A zoning district, we have that hardship of not being able to provide service in certain areas and not being able to improve the service in other areas. With respect to the desirable relief being grantable, I'll say, without detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of the bylaw, the placement of this particular site is actually quite good. Where we've located it, it's more than 700 feet from the public right-of-way. We submitted some photo simulations that show that it's situated in such a way as to have a pretty minimal aesthetic impact. We cannot make wireless communication towers invisible. We do our best to place them in such a way that they really aren't looming over anyone or creating a significant aesthetic impact, and I think this one achieves that quite well. So that would be my position on the Massachusetts variance criteria. As the board members are probably aware, there's a federal component to this, such that federal law preempts the Massachusetts criteria if in fact the board finds that that criteria is not met. And federal law is quite a bit simpler. It simply says that yes, the board should consider the relevant state law criteria. And then if the variance or whatever relief is needed cannot be granted, the board should consider whether applying that provision of the bylaw, in this case, a prohibition in the Residence A district, prohibits wireless service. And that's really the situation we have here. There's no way to achieve this coverage objective without putting a facility in the Residence A district. And this particular proposal, we think, is by far the best way to do it. So with that being said on the criteria, if you could, well, I guess if you have any questions on the specific proposal, we could go through those. And then we could, if there are questions about the coverage objectives, we can specifically look at the visual aids that were submitted and go over those. But I'd turn it over to the board for any questions at this point.
Thank you. Ms. McAllister, do you have anything further to add?
I don't believe I do. Mr. Swiniarski, if you would like to share your screen, you're welcome to, as if you'd like to present instead. I believe, Bernie, if that's all right with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, I think as needed. You know, I rarely use Google Meets, so could you just tell me where the screen sharing button is?
Yeah, there should be three. Yep, next to the three dots on the bottom right, there should be something that says present now, and you can choose an individual window that you have open.
Holy moly, I don't seem to have, oh, here we go. Okay, let's see here. Having a little trouble getting this.
Which one were you looking for? Which, do we have the document you want to share?
Yeah, you do have all the documents. For whatever reason, this is not giving me a choice to select my PDF program to do it. Oh, here we go. Okay. So I think you can all see this particular map of the area. Yeah. Okay, so the site that we're proposing is the one, we call it Shrewsbury 6. That's our internal name. And what you have here is the existing coverage from existing sites. You have one called Boylston here, one called West Boylston 3, Shrewsbury Center, etc. And this sort of color key shows which sites are serving this area. As you can see, some of these are pretty far away. 290 is covered by the site West Boylston 3. That's quite far away. Indeed, parts of 290 are also covered by our Shrewsbury Center site. When we flip to the next page, you can see what the proposed site does for relief. Everything in green is now serviced by the proposed facility, which gives a lot of bandwidth back to the Shrewsbury Center site, also to this West Boylston 3 site, which provides a lot of coverage in Shrewsbury. And the our I-290 corridor is an important one to us, obviously, because there's a lot of traffic and a lot of users there. So, and in my mind, these graphic representations are always a lot more helpful than my words in trying to figure out what it is we're trying to achieve here. And I think this does it pretty well in terms of explaining where the need is and how this proposal addresses that need.
Great. Thank you. Going to pass this on to the board to see if there's any further questions. I'd like to start with Lisa Cosette, please. Any questions?
Sure. Mr. Swiniarski, I hope I pronounced that right. So I usually have two concerns when these types of proposals come to us. So you gave a very good explanation of what our role is legally in these decisions. So legally, the zoning board must approve this proposal or a proposal like it, despite this being in a residential area, if there's no other way to provide service. So two things I look for is, can you please describe a little bit about the alternatives that were looked at, if any? And then the other thing that concerns me with these are the balloon tests, which I think maybe you'll show us, but I want to make sure that where the cell tower will be placed is, I just would like to show during this meeting where the balloon test showed it being visible, like which locations, and that would be great. Thank you.
Yep. One clarification on the idea of, sorry, one clarification on the idea of alternatives. And the way the law works, it's not so much that this must be granted if there are no other alternatives. It's rather if this is the best alternative. I would never propose that one proposal is the only way to do it. But really here, the idea is that we are in Residence A. There was a proposal very similar to this approved again on St. John's property across the street. In general, this is one property that is very, very large and has a significant number of users, as you can imagine, where you don't get that in other residential properties. We look to avoid residential properties, and that's what makes this unique, because while it is in Residence A, I think most people would agree this is not typical Residence A. It's not a single family home. So when we're looking for alternatives, we have a coverage area that we're trying to hit, which again is the one we talked about. And we sort of look at all the properties in this area. The majority of them are either single family or they are St. John's property, which we've looked at. We felt in this particular situation, we don't want to do anything on a single family lot, obviously. So we looked to St. John's, and this particular location we felt was the best, not the only way to do it, but the best way to do it. Because it's tucked back, it's not really near anything. We're quite far from the nearest ball field. On the plans that we submitted, we put a 150-foot ring around the tower, and we're not really encroaching even within that ring into the ball field. So that really describes our analysis and how we got to this site and how we ruled out other alternatives, being really all of the single family properties in the area. With respect to the balloon test, let me see if I can switch to the photo simulations we did.
So thank you, by the way, for that explanation. That was
Sure, my
exactly what I
pleasure.
wanted to hear. So thank you.
Okay. Now I'm not sure what you're seeing on your screen while I try to open the photo simulations.
Yeah, we're still seeing your coverage map.
Gotcha. Okay, so I think I may have to stop
Or we-
sharing that.
Yeah, or we can share. I'm sure we.
I am able to share if you would like.
Rowan
if
has
that would
that.
be easier.
Okay, it might be better just because I'm a little bit of a rookie on Google Meet, even though I seem to be using Zoom on all of these. If you wouldn't mind, Rowan, pulling up tab 4 of the application, it should be bookmarked in your packet.
Tab 4.
Yeah, so if you should have bookmarks in yours, so I think they're all numbered, and the one that's numbered 4.
I think we actually have a separate document just called balloon test, which would be the section that you're
I
describing.
believe that's correct.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you see the balloon test document here?
Yep.
Are you seeing that? Is that
Okay, and so yeah,
Oh.
actually, Rowan, if you want to pause on, yeah, you can pause on that one for a moment. So if you're looking at that, when we floated a balloon at the tower height of 120, our people have basically driven on the roads that are shown in blue. They've covered all this area looking for the balloon, and each place where you see a red dot is where they took a picture of the balloon and created a photo simulation based on that. The actual technology used here is not that difficult to understand. You float a big giant balloon at 120 feet, take a picture, and then superimpose a graphic of the tower. They do it with a very high degree of precision, though, and it's actually quite good. But this gives you an idea of the vantage points for all the photographs that follow. And then if you want to scroll through, Rowan, we can, I guess, sort of go slowly. And if anyone has questions about any particular vantage point, we can talk about those a little bit. I hope that I can be helpful if you have questions. I wasn't involved in doing the actual balloon test, so I'm not sure what I can answer, but we'll try.
Insufficient storage.
okay? Are you all seeing this?
Yep.
As
Yeah.
I scroll?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just go slowly.
Yep.
And you have a little designation in the bottom left of the street address for where these pictures are taken.
Right. So it's 402 Main Street there.
Yep.
This is 317 Main Street. Keep
Right.
going,
So
Rowan.
not visible.
Not
from the
visible,
application.
right?
Now we have 29 Lexington.
Yep. And again, I think it's not visible here
Right.
either, as you can see from the indication. So there are a lot of spots where you might expect it to be, and exactly where we put it, you actually don't see it. And that is a major objective of what we're trying to do.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Lisa, any further questions?
No, those were the two things I appreciated being explained. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, George, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I just have a question on what the tower will look like and if there's any plan on trying to screen it somehow.
Well, as far as what it will look like, that first set of pictures is probably the best that I can show you, far better than any words I can give you right there. And that's from 402 Main. In terms of screening, the other pictures are actually our best attempt at screening it. The positioning of the tower and the height is really how we screen it from the majority of the community. From this particular location, which is practically on campus, I mean, it's on Main Street, you will see it, and there isn't really a way to make this invisible. But otherwise, it's actually very well screened from most of the community from the other locations where we took pictures where you would expect to be able to see it.
Great. Thank you. Mr. George, any more questions?
Yeah, I
You're
just
muted.
stated that one was approved a little while back down on Spring Street, and they did screen it with some type of making it look like a tree in a wooded area. I was wondering if is that something that you would consider doing, or is that something you could do, or?
Well, it's something we have done, and it is possible. What I can tell you is that, and I haven't seen the one that you're referring to, but having been in this business for more than a dozen years, I've seen many of those. And most people regret it afterwards. They don't, the idea, the tower cannot be the same height as the trees. It doesn't work if you stick it in the forest. It has to be above the trees. So when you get this one pine tree that is 40 feet taller than all the other pine trees, you actually draw attention to it, and it becomes something that people look at and talk about. And I haven't heard a whole lot of people who say, "My, that looks wonderful. Looks just like a tree." It just doesn't happen. It looks like a big fake tree because it is a big fake tree. When you make it a tower, which is what it is, people actually tend to not notice it after a few days. These are everywhere. Your cell phones wouldn't work if they weren't everywhere, and most people don't notice them. So the answer to your question is yes, it can be done, but we don't find that it's a good result. It's usually regret after the fact.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Fullen, do we have any questions?
No questions. I'm just curious if the neighbors in the area have anything to say about it.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a minute, I think, if anybody's on the line. Mr. Armenti, do you have any questions?
No, Madam Chair, the rest of the board pretty much addressed the questions that I had, so I'm good.
Thank you. Mr. Swinarski, my question for you is regarding the fall test that you've provided us the engineering on. Can you just speak to that?
Yes. Well, not really a fall test, but I know that the request was for a fall zone, and usually when folks ask for that, it's sort of for a radius. And I think I made a little mistake and made it 150 feet instead of 120 feet because we were kind of rushing doing that at the last second. But an important thing to understand, and something I appreciate the opportunity to clarify, like any other structure, it's very rare for anything to sort of fall down right at its base and fall, in this case, 120 feet or 150 feet. Towers are designed with strategic points in the middle so that if there is ever some sort of storm, unforeseen storm, that causes a tower to break, it breaks in segments so that it doesn't fall farther. Well, you try to reduce how far it falls, essentially. I have not actually heard of a situation where a foundation has failed and the tower has fallen the full height of the tower. I'm not saying it's never happened. I don't know, but I haven't heard of that. And in reality, towers are constructed with much more demanding standards than other buildings. It's not more likely to fall down in a storm than another kind of building. So I couldn't come here and say the tower's never going to fall down, but the chance of a tower falling down is not greater than the chance of any other building falling down. And I know a lot of people think, well, utility poles come down all the time in storms. That's true, but they have wires attached to them, and they come down because the wires get hit. That's not the case here. I mean, this is really, in terms of falling down, not different than another 120-foot structure. And it's probably better than most.
Thank you. I just want to have one other question. In terms of the maintenance aspect of things, how frequently is this monitored and checked for?
Yep, monitoring is ongoing. So we have a lot of sensors monitoring exactly what is happening with this tower and when it's operational, such that if this tower goes offline, we know immediately. And obviously, if there's a problem, someone is sent to fix it. Other than that, there is periodic physical maintenance. It's usually on approximately a monthly basis, where it's simply a visual inspection to make sure that there are no obvious problems. But really, most of the metrics and the performance are monitored electronically, so that we know if it's working. Sort of like those graphic representations I gave you before, where we know what site is doing what and where it's providing coverage. The same way we know what it's doing, we also know right away when it's not doing anything and when it's gone down. So a big part of our maintenance is simply electronic monitoring and responding to any problems. And other than that, it's about a monthly inspection.
A monthly inspection. Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Yep.
No further questions from the board. This is a public hearing, so I'd like to open it up to anyone out there in the public that might have any questions. Going to give it a few seconds to see if anyone's out there. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay. Can I get a motion?
Madam
to close
Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I just saw that someone just joined, so if maybe we should just ask one more time.
Is there anybody that wishes to be heard on this matter?
In case they just joined to say something on the matter. So sorry.
I hope they were listening.
Yeah.
All
They
right.
may have been watching the live stream or something and called in, but I guess not. Okay.
Okay. If there is no one out there that wants to be heard on this matter, I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Motion to close?
Can I get a second?
Second.
Great, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve a use variance to allow for the construction, operation, and maintenance of a wireless communication tower at 378 Main Street?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, Lisa?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Matthew?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Mary Beth, aye. So moved. Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Okay, thanks very much. Have a good night, everyone.
Good evening. Okay. Next up, we are here to hear the appeal for 334 Grafton Street, located in the Residence A and Commercial Business District. We are looking for 2 variances and 3 special permits. Variance 1 is for section 0.50 for a common driveway. Variance 2 is section 7, table 1 for a horizontal mixed use. Special permit 1 is section 4B for an existing non-conforming lot. Next special permit is for section 6, table 1 for a garage and a repair shop. And the last special permit is to section 6, table 1 for a sales room for automobiles. Given that this is a public hearing for 334 Grafton Street and it's a new public hearing, could I ask the applicant to please introduce themselves and explain their application to the board? Richard, I believe you're muted if you are the representing. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, if it pleased the board, my name is Richard Ricker and I'm an attorney with law offices at 11 Maple Ave. And I'm here representing Paul Gaudet and Dan Matt Realty LLC relative to this request. If I could address the special permits first, but maybe that would be the easier and more orderly way to deal with this. Mr. Gaudet, since he's been in Shrewsbury since the 1960s, he has been operating a with a class 2 license and a garage right next door at 228 Grafton Street for a number of years without incident. It's a very quiet operation, and it's appointment only, does some internet sales. So it's a very small, low-key operation. It's a 9 automobiles is what he's allowed to have on site for sale. Frankly, the neighbors, I believe, all support him. Mr. Sandy, who is the underlying landowner of the lot next door, over which the right-of-way that enters this property is dominant. Mr. Sandy, I understand, is in support of this and is fully knowledgeable of this request. We also had Edie Diodato, who she lives at 332 Grafton Street. There is a letter of support in the file from her. As I point out, and if you look at this map, you can see that now formerly Dan Matt owned 228 Grafton Street. So he was operating his car dealership and his garage on that parcel until he sold it back in April. He bought this property in April of 2020. We were in front of the selectmen in November, and they granted him a license for this particular site for both the Class 2 car license and car sales, as well as for the garage license. The special permit for 4B is based on the fact that this is clearly a non-conforming lot. In actuality, Mr. Gaudette and Dan Matt, they have about 4.5 acres there. This particular parcel, and each parcel was deeded separately at one time. So we're looking at one of the parcels. In particular, this is non-conforming because there's no frontage. This property has no frontage whatsoever on Grafton Street. What it does have, however, is a deeded right-of-way. And the deeded right-of-way is irrevocable. It is in the deeds. It's on the title. It is not something that can be taken away or altered in any way, shape, or manner. So he has an absolute right to that right-of-way, which is 40 feet wide, coming from Grafton Street up to the present house, which you can see is the first structure as you go into this lot. On the other lot, just to the south of this, is, if you were up there, if you've gone there, was the big old greenhouse that was up there. And that was a business that went on for many years at that site as well, and used this right of way. And at one time, the right of way was used for both the residents and the greenhouse business. And so when the right of way was granted, it was to be used in common between these two lots. Well, now these two lots are owned by one individual, one entity. So I would suggest to you respectfully that they're merged. In any event, because this is a prior non-conforming lot, in order to alter it by putting a garage on it and by building a garage on it, we need a special permit. So that's the first special permit. The other two special permits are as required by our bylaws for the ability to have a garage, which he's got a garage license for, and the ability to have a Class 2 car lot, which he has a license granted as well in November by the selectmen. So the selectmen granted both licenses, and I would suggest to you respectfully on all three of these special permits, there is essentially no nuisance value, no harm to the neighborhood, no detriment to the general public or to the neighborhood whatsoever. This is as isolated as you can get for a lot. This backs up to the Home Depot parking lots and warehouses. And on the other side, it's got the Little Creek Realty Trust and now Labadini Landscaping, where Dan Matt used to be. So it is surrounded by some commercial uses, and realistically, the Home Depot is probably the most intensive. And I would say that this use, therefore, is in keeping. Now, one reason why this is so in keeping is because the garage that we're looking at is proposed to be built in the commercial business zone. This lot is a large lot, as I said, and the hardship is the fact that it's a large, isolated lot, but dissected by a zone line. So the shape of the lot, coupled with the fact that you've got a zone line running through it, surrounded by commercial properties, I would suggest to you is your topographical hardship, because you are dissected and you have commercial business zone within which he wants to build this structure. Now, we don't have in our bylaw a horizontal mixed use category, apparently. And because of that, that's the reason for variance number 2, because there's nothing in the table that allows horizontal mixed use. I would suggest to you that again, you've got a lot that is otherwise accessible by a right-of-way. Mr. Gaudet is going to live in that house. He's been fixing it up to live there for himself. It is both the house and the garage are within zones that are permissible. So you have a real horizontal mixed use, because it's not, commercial on the first floor and residential on the second floor. You have commercial next door and a garage, and a residential in the residential portion of the property. Again, I would suggest you've got a very large lot and dissected by a zone line, accessed only by a right-of-way. You've got a use that is I would suggest quite docile. I mean, it's quiet. As I said, it's by appointment only. He does, I think, a little bit of internet sales, but he does otherwise appointment only. The common drive question is the second variance, which I've had considerable discussion with the town about the common drive aspect of this. And I think Mr. Cahill's attitude is that because it's a mixed use, 2 different uses on one lot, that it therefore comes under the common drive category. And I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong. But what we're asking for, and under the common drive standards, we would be required to do an 18-foot right-of-way paved. What we're suggesting, in order to meet the fire and safety codes with the fire department and the Commonwealth of Mass CMRs, is we would do a 20-foot right-of-way, but we're asking you to allow us relief under footnotes 1 and 2 of that particular section of the bylaw that allows us not to have to pave the full 20 feet. Now, I would point out to you that Grafton Street down below this is not even 20 feet wide. The paved section is not even 20 feet wide. We're asking you to allow us, instead of doing a 3 or 4 inch binder coat and then a 2-inch top coat, to allow Mr. Gaudet to use bituminous grindings, which is still pavement. It's still a pavement product, but it's the grindings that get compacted on the driveway and actually give a very good, useful topping. It is obviously more economical, and it will do the trick. He does have some track machines that he uses and that he uses to maintain the site, and he feels that the bituminous grindings can be repaired much easier and much more economically if he's allowed to use this type of topping instead of a full paved 20 feet, which, as I said, and I suggest to you, is not even what Grafton Street has down below it. I would suggest respectfully, this is incidental. These requests are incidental to this particular property. There is no other property around that area like this. It backs up to, as I say, to Home Depot. It has a dissection of lot lines, of zone lines. It is accessed off of a right-of-way off of Grafton Street. It's a very incidental, these requests to this particular lot. And I would suggest to you that a 20-foot right-of-way is a sizable engagement for Mr. Gaudet to accomplish. He's going to be moving the present driveway onto the right-of-way. As you can see down below there, the driveway actually wanders off of the right-of-way. And he will correct that and move it onto the right-of-way so that it is clearly within the deeded right-of-way. I would suggest also that this request does not derogate from the bylaw because he's talking about a residence on a residential section of this parcel, and it's a single family residence, and he's talking about his garage on the commercial business section of this property. So therefore he's meeting the zoning in other ways, however, accessing it with the right of way. I would also suggest that there is no nuisance attached to this. The neighbors attest to the fact that they are very happy with him. They've been happy with him. He's been there for a number of years. There has been no problem. As I suggested, Diodato has given a letter supporting his license request and supporting to the town officials, asking that he'd be allowed to do this. And I believe Mr. Sandy, if he wanted to speak, is on the line as well here. He, I believe, supports this as well. So I just don't see any nuisance value to this whatsoever to the neighborhood. He's been there. He's been in the neighborhood for years. In that respect, there's really no change. So I think I've hit all of the various requests. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Rick, Attorney Ricker. Mr. Cahill, is there anything further you'd like to add?
No, I don't believe so. I think Attorney Ricker hit all the major points. Just to summarize, 3 special permits, one for the use of the garage and repair, one for the sale of vehicles. Those 2 have also been granted conditional licenses by the selectmen pending the decision of this board. The 3rd special permit was for alterations on an existing non-conforming lot. The first variance of 2 variances was for the horizontal mixed use. Yeah, no, sorry, there's a lot on this one. So the horizontal mixed use is actually something we did introduce at the August town meeting. We just haven't, we only just got Attorney General approval for that. We do have it now. Simply that means 2 different uses on a single lot. So that's 1 variance. And the second variance is under common driveway standards. Footnote 1 simply states that you need X amount of inches of pavement and so on. And they're looking to do crushed gravel or pavement on the site in lieu of that is the second variance. I don't think I have anything else to add. I will say just the board be mindful that the state regulations that Attorney Ricker mentioned are not something that this board has any jurisdiction over. So we're looking simply at the 18 feet, which is required by our zoning bylaw, and we'll let the state work out what they want to do. But that said, they are showing now, which they didn't in the initial plan, a 20-foot wide common driveway. The minimum is 18 because this part of the common driveway that is shown is in the residential district. So they are surpassing the width on that. So really what the board is simply looking at for that variance is whether they're comfortable with pavement versus crushed stone. Planning department really doesn't have a view on that either way, whatever the board's comfortable with. If you're comfortable with crushed stone, then I'm comfortable with crushed stone. It would go to the planning board anyways for a special permit, which once it goes through a variance like this, it would probably be more, almost as much a formality, although it would be showing utilities along the common driveway and would provide a chance for the applicant to provide the common driveway, a copy of the deed to the board for the records. So that's all I really have to say, I think, at this point. And I'll go back to you, Madam Chair, and public comment if there is any.
Madam Chair, if I could just add, we did ask for waivers on the location of utility lines.
Yes.
Prominent vegetated areas, because this is a large field, and drainage calculations, because we do expect we're going to have to get in front of the planning board relative to those issues, and especially drainage calculations and stormwater management issues.
Correct. Thank you for remembering. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's ask the board questions or comments. I'd like to start with Lisa, if I could.
Okay, I don't know where to begin. So I think what I'll say it this way. Before your explanation, Mr. Ricker, which was excellent, I looked at this request and thought, gee, it's right by Home Depot. Too bad access can't be given through Home Depot. But you mentioned the right of way. So legally, the appellant has every right to use the driveway or whatever is provided to access Grafton Street from there. So I threw that one out. I have no issue with the building itself, the garage, this, and it being on the same parcel, particularly because it's zoned appropriately. So I really had no issue with that. I'm thinking about the use. I'm struggling. I normally would struggle with changing the use because this is perpetual. But the fact that it's split by these two zones gives me pause, and so I'm less concerned about that. It satisfies some of my concerns. My issue, I think, is really with access. And prior to your explanation, it was really the access and this being a common driveway. But I think, Mr. Cahill, now that you explained the 18-foot requirement, I'm less concerned about that. Sorry, I'm just giving comments and following my thought process. I did have a question, a clarification question for Mr. Ricker. I believe you had a comment about this parcel being owned by the same owner. These uses, I guess, being owned by the same owner, but wouldn't that always be the case? This is one lot that will always have one owner that has two zoning restrictions. Okay.
I would say that's a correct statement. I mean, I don't see how you could do otherwise. It's one lot. I mean, there's another lot to the south of it that has the greenhouse on it. It's all owned by the same entity. So,
okay.
Dan Matt Realty.
And I had one more clarifying question, I guess, for Mr. Cahill, which I think you just explained. I was struggling with what the heck does horizontal mixed use mean, and why is it relevant in this case? Isn't it just the fact that it's not vertical in a residential area isn't that more relevant? But you explained it. Horizontal is just two different uses within the same lot.
Side by side.
Side by side instead of up down.
Which would also require variance, vertical mixed use.
Right.
So
True.
either one.
Right. So that's why I was like, it's mixed use, period.
Yeah.
But the fact that the use for commercial is within the commercial part of the parcel, and the fact that the residential is in the residential, it makes it less problematic. So those are my thoughts, everyone. I had no more questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cassette. Mr. Fullen, questions, comments?
I'll say that all my questions were answered. I just wanted to ask the crushed tar that you're putting down on there, how thick is that going to be?
Well, I think it's probably at least a few inches. I mean, I've used it myself on some lots down on 140. And you need to at least 3 or 4 inches in order to make it work right and to compact correctly.
Oh yeah, I'm a fan. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, I am too. I'm a very big fan of it, frankly. Because it's economical and it lasts. So.
And that level, sorry, Richard, to interrupt, Patrick, that level of detail would be presented to the planning board at the planning board stage, the special permit, how many inches and what kind of material. So
Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah.
You have to have gravel underneath it as well, Mr. Fullen, because,
Yeah.
you know, you don't want it to, because bituminous grindings can really get into the soil if you don't have a good base underneath it.
Right.
So there's going to have to be some structure to it.
Yeah, I've seen it used in a few driveways. I like it.
Okay.
Works nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. George, do we have any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Thank you. And Mr. Armenti, any questions or comments?
No questions.
Thank you. The only comment I have is regarding the horizontal mixed use, and I just want to reiterate, thank you for that explanation, because that was a head scratcher for me as well. I just have a question about the hours of operation of the garage and the repair shop. Has that been?
We dealt with that at the license stage, and I think, let me just go back and look.
While you're looking, I will just say one of the joys of being on this board is getting to see things in town that you would have never even knew existed. This being one of them. Who would have ever known that was back there?
Actually, a lot of people knew that the greenhouse used to be back there because that was a very popular greenhouse in the day. And John LeBeau mentioned that Shrewsbury Nurseries used to buy all of their stuff from the greenhouse there back in the day. The hours would be 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that is for that was the permitted hours from the selectmen's meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. I'd like to invite any members of the public that wish to be heard on this matter to let us know you're out there and that you have a question or a comment for us. Let me give it a few seconds in case anybody's on mute. *6 yourself. Okay, there being no. Ms. Cosette?
Sorry, I had a follow-up
Sure.
question. I guess for Mr. Cahill and how the special permit would be worded and the conditions that we're looking at. Normally well, I shouldn't say normally, sometimes we give a time restriction, you know, for 1 year or something like that. And with certain conditions, you mentioned, Mr. Ricker, that this was by appointment only, things like that. So I'm looking in our packet to see what kind of conditions were considered.
Mr. Cahill's, any comments on that?
Well, this is the first that I've heard of conditions from board members this
Okay.
evening. So
Okay.
I don't know if we've done conditions on this type of thing in the past. I don't
Okay.
recall garages having conditions before. I think I know what you're talking about. And there are home uses that we certainly have
Sure.
conditions on.
And
for
this is, and sorry, I'm only raising it because it's mixed use now. So there's this, I'm not sure if we have to go there.
Yeah. So no, I think it's a good question. Basically, I think the gist of your question, what you're getting at, is what protections are there for future residents? Keep in mind with garage licenses and with sales licenses, automobile licenses, those have to go back to the selectmen at certain points for renewal.
Every
So
year.
if there's an issue after 12 months
Okay.
thereabouts, they come back in. So if there's an issue and the selectmen get wind of it and that gets brought to their attention, they'll certainly bring that up, and they could deny or condition their own license themselves. So that is kind of the check and balance on issuing something like this. And I think the selectmen themselves were aware of it when they issued these 2 licenses a month and a half ago.
I would also point out, Lisa, that to build a garage like this is a sizable investment, and I would be remiss if I didn't say, boy, if you put a sunset provision on it, it
Right.
would be just onerous, you know?
Sure. It's not like a room in your house that you're
Right.
using for a year. Understood. Okay, so that's all I had as a follow-up question.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, with that being said, I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Motion to close?
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, Lisa,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Matt Armenti.
Aye.
Thank you, and Mary Beth, aye. Do I have a motion to approve variance for section 7L2 common
Mary,
driveway?
sorry, Mary
standard-
Beth, to interrupt. Did you want to deliberate first before
Oh, of course. I'm
you got right
sorry.
into a vote? And please, during the motion, don't forget those waivers. I think you can just say inclusive waivers that
Oh.
were requested. We have a list. There's 2 of them, and they're mostly about utilities and showing landscaping. So if you just say inclusive waivers, I think that's fine.
Are they part of the variance request or the special permits or?
They came in all as one application.
Okay.
So I would say, I would also, Madam Chair, suggest that if, just get a general vibe, if there's anyone who thinks they might object to one or more individual variance or special permits, to kind of let Mary Beth know now. You don't have to tell her which one. If you don't think that's where you're heading, then I think you can make a motion for all the variances and special permits and vote as one block and one vote. But if there are going to be objections, it makes much more sense to go individually. So now I think is the time to let Mary Beth know if you're hesitant about one or more. If you're not, then I think you'll be fine to do a motion for all of them and then have one big vote at the end. Does that make sense? I just want to make sure if there's going to be an objection, we're going to have to do individual
Oh, God.
votes. So, over to you, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to run through the board and see if anybody anticipates an objection. Lisa?
So I don't. I originally had some concerns, but they were satisfied by the explanation. So I'm fine for all variances and special permit requests.
Thank you. Mr. George?
Yes, I do.
Matt Armenti?
I have no objections.
And Patrick?
I'm fine.
I just want to go back to Mr. George. I'm sorry. Are you anticipating you have an objection?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So then, Mary Beth, you'll start at the top for the special permits and just walk through. I think just start with the first 3 special permits and then follow with the 2 variances and then the waivers. So just, you're going to need a motion for each one.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve variance for section 7L2, the common driveway standards, footnote 1 of the zoning bylaws? Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve, right?
Approve.
Yeah. Yep. Motion to approve variance number 1.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Lisa?
Aye.
Mr. George?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Armenti.
Aye.
Mr. Fullen?
Aye.
Mary Beth Lynch, aye. Okay. Going to go to the second.
Madam Chair, point of
Yes.
order, if I may.
Yes.
So, Mr. Cahill, can I suggest we were notified that there was an objection to one of the many requests before us. We did not have an opportunity to hear argument otherwise. So as a suggestion, since we know there's an for the remainder request, if there is if we can ask for an objection specifically for each one and then have discussion before moving on, I'd appreciate that. Is that all right?
Yeah, the board can run their meetings however they see fit. So if
Okay.
the chair would like to do it that way, then certainly you can discuss each one at a time or discuss the whole project at one time. So it's up to you and the chair to come to some sort of agreement on that.
So it sounds like,
So, Madam Chair, sorry. So it for the first variance has been voted on the way it's been voted on, but going forward, if I would appreciate if I could hear arguments for and against if there is any objection.
okay,
If
All
you
right.
so agree.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Freedom of speech is a good thing. So is that, so we're gonna move on to the second variance. Section 6, Table 1 for horizontal mixed use. And I'm going to start with Lisa.
I would like to know if there's any objection by any board members for this variance before giving my ruling.
Mr. George?
Not on the horizontal use.
Okay, no objection to the horizontal use. Mr. Armenti?
No objection to the horizontal use.
Thank you. Mr. Fullen?
No.
Thank you. And I
Okay.
have no objection myself, so that makes it, so can we get a motion to approve variance section 6, table 1 for horizontal mixed use?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, Mr. George?
All right.
Ms. Cosette?
Aye.
Mr. Armenti?
Aye.
And Mr. Fullen?
Aye.
Ms. Lynch, so moved. Okay, moving on to the first special permit, section 4B for an existing non-conforming lot. Start with Ms. Cosette, please.
Again, I ask for any discussion if there is any objection to any of the remaining special permit requests.
Can I
If-
group these together as, I can group these together, right? Mr. George?
No problem with those.
Thank you. Mr. Armenti?
No concerns.
Thank you. Mr. Fullen?
I'm good.
Thank you. Ms. Cosette?
No, I do not as well.
Thank you. And I am fine with this as well. So I can group these as 3, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve a special permit to alter an existing non-conforming lot? A special permit for garage and repair shop usage, and a special permit for automobile sales room usage at 334 Grafton Street?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Ms. Cosette?
Aye.
Mr. George?
All right.
Mr. Armenti?
Aye.
Mr. Fullen?
Aye.
And Ms. Lynch, aye as well. Thank you very much. On to new
Thank-
business.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cahill, can we consider that with waivers?
Yes, please. Yeah, that was my
Oh.
next words out of my mouth is please vote on the
Abs-
waivers as well.
Okay. All right. You're gonna have to help me out here, Bernie.
Yep. So the waiver requests were for the location of utilities,
Yep.
location of prominent vegetated areas. You can just say vegetated areas, and drainage calculations. So if you want to say, make a motion to approve the waivers as read out by the planner, that's fine too. You don't have to say everything I just said.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, can I
No-
get a motion?
Yeah.
Motion to approve as read by, eloquently read by Mr. Cahill.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, Ms. Cosette,
Aye.
Mr. George?
No,
Thank you, Mr. Armenti.
Aye.
Mr. Fullen?
Aye.
Ms. Lynch, so moved. Thank you. Did I do everything I was supposed to do?
Yes.
Thank you very
Wonderful.
much. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very,
you.
very much. Okay, a few more orders of new business. If I could just take a moment. I understand that there was an error in drafting of the special permit for the decision at 34 Oakland Ave back in August. Mr. Cahill, could I ask you to please explain?
Yep, certainly. Let me just really quickly show you. So this was a drafting error on the planning department's side. So I don't know if can everyone, I'm going to open it up. So you might remember this one from back in, I believe it was August. You can see here, this was the deck and the balcony that we, 34 Oakland Avenue. So when we were drafting the decision, I think it was pretty clear. I went back and looked through all of the documentation and the minutes, and in fact, the findings of the decision itself that was approved by this board. And as you can see here, what I highlighted in yellow, it was included in the findings, the balcony. So the balcony was included a couple of times. This decision in the findings, however, at the time, it was when it was drafted, final decision without any mention of the 3-foot, 7-foot balcony in the final decision. So when it came to the building permit stage, we realized our error. The building inspector caught it and said that this needed to be amended in order for it to be applicable for the building permit. So it was an oversight by our part and the person who drafted this decision. We're trying to remedy it now. We did something, the board did something similar in April, I believe, with I think it was it 158 South Quinsigamon with the when we were doing the guy was putting the rec room in the back and switching places with the house, and the house was going in the front. And at the time, I think some of these get kind of complicated. I think Chris at the time had drafted it, and it just kind of got worded kind of poorly. So this is trying to clean that up and just make sure the intent of the application. And I think it was the intent of this board to include that balcony because it's all throughout the findings as it was written. It just wasn't in the final paragraph. So this vote would just vote to amend that decision to correct for that error and allow the person to move forward with their building permit. So again, apologies on behalf of the building department, the planning department for poorly drafting that, but I think we've got a handle on it now. And so we'd ask the board to please consider this change.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. So can I get a motion to amend the special permit decision for 34 Oakland Ave in
So moved.
August of 2020?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
second,
All in
Second.
favor, Ms. Cosette,
Aye.
Mr. George,
aye,
Mr. Fullen,
Aye.
Mr. Armenti,
Aye.
Ms. Lynch, aye, so moved. Bernie, that's the only mistake we're going to let you have in 2020.
If that's the only mistake I made in 2020, that's I don't think it was, but 2021's looking up. We're at 2 weeks to go. We're almost there, everyone.
There you go.
Well, thank you, Mary Beth and Madam Chair and members of the board. Have a very happy holidays and New Year. You've all earned it. Thank you so much for everything you did in 2020 remotely. It's been so hard for all of us. So just want to let you know the staff really appreciates your guys, all your efforts and logging on and doing remote and adjusting to COVID. It's been hard for everyone. So a heartfelt thanks for me and everyone at the planning department and town hall. We really appreciate your efforts. So enjoy the new year, enjoy the champagne, and lots of yummy Christmas cake and everything else. So go for it.
So to that point, I'd like to just mention the same. It's been an interesting year. We have brought on a new alternate member. I'd like to introduce Kevin Nisbet. I'm not sure if he's on this call, but we are pleased to invite him and welcome him to our as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. We will we will look forward to getting to know you. And again, I'd like to thank the staff for just unbelievable capabilities. And I know I myself have many, many questions that you always handle with such ease and expertise, and that's really important to us. So thank you. And without
very
further ado, I would like to adjourn this meeting unless there's anyone else out there that would like to be heard on this matter. If not, I want you all to go and have a wonderful 2020, and we'll see you all in 2021.
Is there a second to adjourn?
Second to
Second.
adjourn? All in favor, Ms. Cosette?
Aye.
Mr.
Happy
George?
holidays.
Aye.
Great. Mr. Fullen?
Aye.
And Mr. Armenti?
Aye.
And Miss Lynch? Aye. Amen. Hallelujah. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's. See you all next
right.
year.
Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.